"Take your hands off that door," the hotel manager said, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "This entrance is for guests." 14-year-old Maya Ellis froze with one hand on the golden handle of the Grand Whitmore Hotel. Rain dripped from the ends of her braids. Her sneakers squeaked against the marble floor. In her arms, she held a small white envelope, already soft from the weather. Behind her, people in suits turned to stare. A woman holding a designer purse pulled her little boy closer. A man near the front desk lowered his newspaper. And for one long second, Maya didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "I am supposed to be here." The manager looked her up and down. Not kindly. Not curiously. Like she was a mistake someone had let inside. The Grand Whitmore stood in downtown Chicago, just a few blocks from the river, glowing like a palace between glass towers and wet streets. Its entrance had brass doors, fresh flowers taller than children, and a doorman who opened umbrellas before guests even stepped out of their cars. Maya had seen pictures of it online. She had never imagined she would stand inside it. Not like this. Her foster mother, Mrs. Angela Carter, had dropped her off 20 minutes earlier after their old minivan started making a knocking sound near Michigan Avenue. "Go in, baby, Mrs. Carter had said, pressing the envelope into Maya's hand. "Ask for the event office. Tell them your name. I'll park and come right behind you." But the valet line was packed, traffic was angry, and the rain came down harder. So Maya walked in alone. She wore her best navy dress, the one Mrs. Carter had ironed twice that morning. Around her neck hung a tiny silver locket. Inside was the only photograph she had of her mother, folded so small the edges had turned white. Tonight, the hotel was hosting a charity gala for children in foster care. Maya had been invited to speak. Not as entertainment. Not as a decoration. As the winner of the citywide youth essay contest. Her essay was called "A Room with a Door That Locks." It was about what it felt like to move from home to home, carrying your life in a trash bag, and still believe you deserved a future. The invitation said her words had moved the committee to tears. But now, standing beneath a chandelier bigger than her bedroom, Maya felt like the smallest person in Chicago. The manager stepped closer. His name tag read, Charles Whitman, General Manager. "Miss," he said, lowering his voice just enough to sound polite and still make her feel ashamed, "the service entrance is around the side." Maya blinked. "I'm not here for service." Charles smiled tightly. "Then where are your parents?" A few people in the lobby heard it. Maya heard it too. That sharp little question that always found the bruise. She swallowed. "My foster mother is parking." Charles's face changed. Not with sympathy. With confirmation. Like the word foster explained everything he thought he needed to know. He held out his hand. Invitation. Maya gave him the envelope. He opened it with 2 fingers, as if it might stain him. He read her name. Maya Ellis. Youth Honoree. Grand Whitmore Hope Gala. Then he looked past her toward the front doors, where another car had pulled up. A silver Bentley. A man in a tuxedo stepped out, laughing into his phone. Charles handed the invitation back. "This event is very carefully managed," he said. "We can't have people wandering in just because they found a printed card." Maya's cheeks burned. "I didn't find it." "Do you have identification?" "I'm 14. "Then you'll need an adult." "She's coming." "Then you can wait outside." The words hit harder than they should have. Outside. In the rain. In front of everyone. Maya looked toward the front desk, hoping someone would speak up. A young receptionist named Lily met her eyes. Lily looked uncomfortable. But she said nothing. Charles turned to the doorman. "Please escort her out until her guardian arrives." Maya's fingers tightened around the envelope. "I'm supposed to give a speech tonight." Charles let out a small laugh. Not loud. That would have made him look cruel. Just enough to tell her he didn't believe a single word. "I'm sure you are." That was when Maya saw the poster near the ballroom entrance. A large photograph of smiling children. Gold letters across the top. "Every child deserves a place to belong." For a moment, she just stared at it. Then she looked back at Charles and said, very softly, "Do you believe that?" Charles frowned. "Excuse me?" She pointed at the poster. "Do you believe what it says?" The lobby went quieter. Charles glanced around. Now too many people were watching. "Of course I do," he said. Maya nodded. "Then why are you making me stand outside?" The question sat in the marble lobby like a glass dropped on the floor. Even Charles seemed to feel it. But pride is a dangerous thing when a person has already made a wrong decision in public. He straightened his jacket. "Because rules matter." Maya looked down at her wet shoes. "So do people." The doorman stepped toward her, but he didn't touch her. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. His name tag said Mr. Alvarez. He lowered his voice. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's just wait by the awning." Maya didn't move. Not because she was trying to cause trouble. Because if she walked back through those doors, something inside her felt like it would break. All her life, doors had closed in front of her. Apartment doors. School office doors. Courtroom doors. Strangers' doors. And every time someone told her it was not personal. But it always felt personal when you were the one left outside. A woman in a red evening gown whispered to her husband, "This is uncomfortable." Her husband murmured, "Charles knows what he's doing." Maya heard that too. Charles knows what he's doing. That was what people said when they didn't want to question power. Then a security guard appeared near the elevators. His name was Darren. Big shoulders. Kind face. He looked at Maya, then at Charles. "Everything okay?" Charles didn't take his eyes off Maya. "This young lady is refusing to leave the entrance." Maya's voice trembled. "I'm not refusing. I'm invited." Darren looked at the envelope in her hand. "May I see that?" She gave it to him. He read it. His eyebrows lifted. "Mr. Whitman, this says she's the youth honoree." Charles snatched the invitation from Darren's hand. "It says a lot of things. Anyone can print something." Darren lowered his voice. "Sir, I saw the program list earlier. There was a Maya Ellis." Charles's jaw tightened. Now the room could feel the truth trying to enter. And Charles was trying to keep it out. Before anyone could say another word, a woman rushed through the revolving doors, soaking wet, purse hanging off one shoulder. "Maya!" Mrs. Carter hurried across the lobby, breathless and worried. "I'm sorry, baby. The parking garage was blocked." "What happened?" Maya tried to answer, but her throat closed. Charles turned to Mrs. Carter. "Are you responsible for her?" Mrs. Carter stopped. There it was again. Responsible for her. Not mother. Not guardian. Not guest. Responsible. Mrs. Carter lifted her chin. "I am her foster mother. And she is invited here tonight." Charles smiled, but his eyes were cold. "Then you should have accompanied her properly." Mrs. Carter's face changed. She worked as a night shift nurse at Mercy General. She had held dying hands, cleaned wounds, comforted children through fevers, and raised 3 foster girls on a salary that never stretched far enough. She knew insult when it dressed itself as policy. "Properly?" she asked. Charles folded his hands. "This is a luxury property, ma'am. We have standards." Maya flinched. Mrs. Carter stepped in front of her. "My daughter is not below your standards." The word daughter made Maya's eyes fill. Charles noticed. And for the first time, he looked unsure. Not sorry. Just unsure. Because the lobby was no longer quietly watching. Phones had come out. A guest near the concierge desk had started recording. The charity gala chairwoman, Mrs. Evelyn Park, appeared from the ballroom doors, her pearls bouncing as she walked quickly. What is going on out here? Charles turned immediately. Mrs. Park, I'm handling a small misunderstanding. Maya looked at him. Small. That was another word people used when the pain wasn't theirs. Mrs. Park saw Maya's wet dress. Saw Mrs. Carter's angry eyes. Saw the invitation in Charles's hand. Then she looked at the program she was holding. Maya Ellis, she asked. Maya nodded. Mrs. Park's face went pale. Oh my goodness. We've been waiting for you. Charles's mouth opened. But no words came. Mrs. Park reached for Maya's hands. Sweetheart, I am so sorry. Come with me. We have a room ready upstairs where you can dry off before your speech. But Maya did not move. She looked at Charles. Do I still have to use the side entrance? The silence was worse than shouting. Mrs. Park turned slowly toward Charles. What did she just say? Charles tried to recover. There was confusion about her identity. Darren, the security guard, spoke from behind him. No, sir. There wasn't. Every face turned. Darren stood taller. She showed the invitation. I told you her name was on the program. Charles stared at him with warning in his eyes. Darren kept going. You told her to wait outside in the rain. A murmur spread through the lobby. Mrs. Park's expression hardened. Charles, this gala is sponsored by the owner of this hotel. Charles forced a nervous laugh. I understand that. No, Mrs. Park said. I don't think you do. Before she could say more, the front doors opened again. This time, no one laughed. No one rushed. A tall woman in a dark blue coat stepped into the lobby, shaking rain from her umbrella. She was in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back neatly and a calmness that made people straighten without knowing why. The doorman immediately stood taller. Good evening, Ms. Monroe. Charles turned. And all the color left his face. Victoria Monroe had owned the Grand Whitmore for 6 years. But she almost never appeared at events. Most guests knew her name from business magazines. A self-made hotel executive from Detroit. A woman who had bought failing buildings and turned them into landmarks. Someone powerful enough that politicians smiled when she entered a room. But Maya didn't know any of that. She only knew the woman was looking directly at her. Victoria Monroe took in the scene. The wet child. The embarrassed foster mother. The invitation. The phones. The poster by the ballroom that said every child deserves a place to belong. Then she looked at Charles. Why is tonight's honoree standing in my lobby crying? Charles tried to speak. Ms. Monroe, I was just. Victoria raised one hand. The lobby went still. She walked toward Maya slowly, like she didn't want to scare her. What is your name, sweetheart? Maya Ellis. Victoria's face softened at the last name. Just slightly. Ellis? Maya nodded. My mom's name was Danielle Ellis. Something moved across Victoria's face. A memory. A wound. A ghost. Mrs. Carter noticed it. So did Charles. Victoria looked at the silver locket around Maya's neck. May I see that? Maya hesitated, then opened it. Inside was the tiny photograph of a young woman wearing a hotel uniform, smiling with tired eyes. Victoria's hand rose to her mouth. For the first time all night, the owner of the Grand Whitmore looked less like a businesswoman and more like someone whose heart had been pulled back 20 years. Danielle, she whispered. Maya's voice became cautious. You knew my mother? Victoria did not answer right away. She looked toward the grand staircase. Then toward the ballroom doors. Then back at Maya. Yes, she said quietly. I knew her. Charles shifted on his feet. The guests leaned closer. Victoria took a breath. Before this place had my name on the paperwork, before the magazines, before any of this. I was a housekeeper here. A murmur passed through the room. Victoria continued. I worked the third floor. Your mother worked banquets. She was younger than me, funny, stubborn, always singing when she thought no one could hear. Maya stared at her. No one had ever told her that. Not one person. Victoria smiled sadly. One winter night, I was accused of stealing a guest's diamond bracelet. I hadn't taken it. But back then, someone like me didn't get many questions. I was taken to a back office. Told I would be fired. Maybe arrested. Maya's fingers closed around the locket. Victoria's voice became softer. Your mother walked into that office with a laundry cart and said, before you destroy her life, maybe check under the sofa cushions in room 412. A faint laugh escaped Mrs. Carter. Victoria nodded. She had found the bracelet while cleaning after the guest's child had been playing with it. She saved my job. More than that, she saved my dignity. Maya's eyes filled again. Victoria looked at Charles. And tonight, her daughter was told she did not belong in the very hotel her mother once helped hold together. Charles whispered, Ms. Monroe, I had no idea. Victoria turned to him. That is the problem, Charles. You decided before you knew. No one moved. Even the rain outside seemed to quiet against the glass. Charles swallowed. I was protecting the hotel. Victoria's voice stayed calm. No. You were protecting an image. And you confused that image with value. The words landed hard because they were not shouted. They were true. Charles looked at Maya now, really looked at her, and shame began to replace certainty. Maya, he said, I apologize. Maya did not answer. Because some apologies come only after power enters the room. And a child can feel the difference. Victoria turned to Mrs. Park. Has the ballroom begun dinner? In 10 minutes. Good. Then everyone can hear the speech. Charles looked relieved for half a second. Until Victoria added, and before she speaks, I will say a few words. Mrs. Park nodded. Victoria faced Darren. Officer Bennett, thank you for telling the truth. Darren looked surprised. Yes, ma'am. Then she looked at Lily, the receptionist, who had been silent the whole time. You two heard what happened? Lily's eyes filled with tears. Yes, Ms. Monroe. Then next time, use your voice sooner. Lily nodded quickly. I will. Victoria removed her coat and placed it gently around Maya's shoulders. It was warm, expensive, and smelled faintly like lavender. But what made Maya tremble was not the coat. It was being covered instead of exposed. Protected instead of questioned. For the first time since entering the hotel, she felt like someone had opened a door and meant it. Upstairs, in a quiet suite overlooking the Chicago River, Mrs. Carter helped Maya dry her dress with a hairdryer while Victoria sat near the window. No one rushed her. No one told her to calm down. That mattered. After a while, Victoria said, Your mother passed when you were young? Maya nodded. I was 6. Car accident. I don't remember much. Just her singing in the kitchen and telling me not to be afraid of big rooms. Victoria smiled through tears. That sounds like Danielle. Maya touched the locket. People always tell me she was good. But nobody tells me stories. Victoria looked out over the city lights. She wanted a better life for you. She talked about you all the time. She used to say, my baby is going to walk through front doors nobody opened for me. Maya covered her mouth. Mrs. Carter turned away, wiping her eyes. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out an old business card, yellowed at the edges. "I kept this for years," she said. On the back, in blue ink, were the words, "When you own your first hotel, remember the girls' cleaning rooms." Under it was a name. Danielle Ellis. Maya stared at the handwriting. Her mother's handwriting. Her mother had been here. Not as a shadow. Not as a sad story. As someone brave. Someone who had changed another woman's life. Victoria handed her the card. "I think this belongs to you." Maya held it like it was something holy. Downstairs, the ballroom was full. Gold lights glowed over white tablecloths. Donors sat beside judges, teachers, business owners, and city officials. At the center table, an empty chair waited with a name card. Maya Ellis. When Maya entered, some people stood. Then more. Then the whole room rose. Not because they fully understood what had happened, but because the feeling had already traveled ahead of her. Charles stood near the wall, stiff and pale. He did not clap at first. Then slowly, he did. Maya walked to the podium wearing Victoria Monroe's coat over her navy dress. Her hands shook as she unfolded her paper. The microphone made a small crackling sound. She looked out at all the faces. For a moment, she thought of leaving. Then she looked at Mrs. Carter, who nodded. She looked at Victoria, who mouthed, "Front doors." Maya took a breath. "My name is Maya Ellis," she began. "And I wrote this essay because I know what it feels like to wonder if there is a place in the world with your name on it." The room went silent. "I have slept in bedrooms where I was told not to unpack, because I might not stay long. I have sat in school offices while adults talked about me like I was a file. I have carried my clothes in bags that made people look at me differently before they knew anything about me." Her voice trembled, then strengthened. "But tonight, before I came into this room, someone looked at me and decided I did not belong. And I almost believed him." Charles lowered his eyes. Maya looked down at her paper, but then folded it. She didn't need it anymore. "My mother used to work in this hotel. I didn't know that until tonight. She cleaned tables, carried trays, and helped people who probably never remembered her name. But one night, she stood up for a woman who had no power in that room. That woman grew up to own this hotel." A gasp moved through the ballroom. Maya continued. "So maybe belonging is not something rich people hand to poor people. Maybe it is not something adults decide children deserve only after reading their paperwork. Maybe belonging begins when someone is brave enough to say, 'Wait. Look again. This person matters.'" Victoria wiped a tear from her cheek. Mrs. Carter held both hands over her heart. Maya looked around the room. "I don't need every room to be easy. I just need people to stop closing doors before they know who is standing there." The applause began softly. Then it grew. Then it filled the ballroom until Maya could barely hear herself breathe. But the night was not over. Victoria stepped to the podium after Maya. She waited until the applause faded. "I had planned to announce a scholarship fund tonight," she said. "But plans change when truth walks through the front door." Everyone listened. "This hotel will now create the Danielle Ellis Front Door Scholarship for foster children aging out of care who want to attend college, trade school, or start their first career." Maya's eyes widened. Victoria turned toward her. "And the first recipient will be Maya Ellis." Mrs. Carter broke down crying. Maya stood frozen. Then Victoria added, "Full tuition. Housing support. Mentorship. And a paid internship at any Monroe hospitality property when she is ready." The room erupted. But across the ballroom, Charles did not move. Justice had found him too. Not the loud kind. The public kind. The kind that makes a man see his reflection in every face around him. Victoria looked toward him. Mr. Whitman, effective immediately, you are placed on administrative leave pending review. Not because you made a mistake. Mistakes can be corrected. But because you defended it when a child was hurting. Charles nodded once. His pride was gone now. Only regret remained. As he walked past Maya near the ballroom doors, he stopped. This time, his voice was low. I am sorry, he said. Not because Ms. Monroe came. Because I was wrong before she did. Maya studied his face. For the first time, the apology sounded like it belonged to him. She nodded. I hope next time you see the person first. Charles looked down. I will. Years later, people would still talk about that night at the Grand Whitmore. Some remembered the scandal. Some remembered the scholarship. Some remembered Victoria Monroe standing under the chandelier, telling a room full of wealthy people that a hotel is not great because of its marble floors, but because of how it treats the person with wet shoes at the door. But Maya remembered something smaller. She remembered the moment she almost walked back into the rain. And the moment she didn't. She kept her mother's old business card framed above her desk. When she graduated high school, it sat beside her diploma. When she moved into her college dorm, it was the first thing she unpacked. And years later, when Maya Ellis became a civil rights attorney for children in foster care, she carried a copy of it in her briefcase. Because she had learned something that night no insult could erase. Some doors are guarded by people who think they decide your worth. But your worth was never standing at the door waiting for permission. It walked in with you.